everybody. We are ready to hear a bedtime story. This one's about two very brave children. Once upon a time, there was a brother and sister who were the best of friends. Their names were Hansel and Gretel, and they lived with their father, the woodcutter, in their cottage just outside the forest. They also lived with their stepmother, who had never played with them, never laughed with them, never held them. And one night, the children, just as they were drifting off to sleep, they heard her plotting to get rid of them. "Yes, yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll take them deep into the forest and I'll leave them there." Their father, he protested, he argued, but eventually she convinced him because they were poor and winter was coming and they couldn't feed the children as well as themselves. Gretel started to worry, but Hansel, well, he was a very clever boy. He went out that night and gathered up as many little pebbles as he could. The next day, the stepmother did lead them into the forest, and when she didn't return from collecting firewood, they realised she had left them there. Gretel started to panic, but Hansel stopped her. He said he'd left pebbles as a trail to take them back home, and after nightfall, they followed those pebbles back to their cottage and to their father, who was so pleased to see them. The stepmother, however, she plotted immediately to how to do it again, and this time she locked them in their bedroom overnight so that Hansel couldn't collect any pebbles. When she took them the next day to the forest and left them there, Gretel couldn't help but cry this time, but Hansel stopped her, for again he'd been very clever. He'd used the bread that had for the picnic and left a trail back to the cottage that they could follow and make their way back home. So they started, but very soon the trail of breadcrumbs, it ran out, and as birds swooped over their heads, they realised that the birds were eating the breadcrumbs and there was no trail to get home. The children started to panic. They started running about all over the place. They were trying to find home and they were getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the forest, and then they saw the strangest house. It was very brightly coloured and it was made of chocolate and sweets and treats. Hansel went over. Their bellies were rumbling from all the running, and he went to take a bite when an old woman came to the door. "Who's eating my house?" she said. Gretel pleaded with her. "Oh, please be kind. Our stepmother, she sent us into the forest and we miss our father so dearly and we're so hungry." And the old lady stopped her. She invited her in for some tea and a nice warm room for the night. The children, upon entering the house, realised that it was very different from the outside. It was grey and there was a cage in the left corner. Oh, but Gretel's tummy rumbled again and they decided to stay. The next day, they looked all over the house for the old lady and they couldn't find her anywhere. But what they did find was a room full of jewels and gold and diamonds. Oh, they couldn't believe it, and then they heard a noise and they turned on their heels. And there was not the old woman at all, but a witch, an evil witch who disguised as an old lady. Oh, she grabbed Hansel and she shoved him in the cage and locked it. She made Gretel cook and cook and cook so that Hansel would get fat and nice for her to eat. The day came when the witch wanted to eat Hansel, so she told Gretel to go over to the oven and make sure it was ready. But Gretel, she was very clever as well. "I don't know what this button does. I don't know if it's hot enough. I don't know how to work it." The evil witch grew impatient, so she went over to do it herself. And just as she went to the door, bam! Gretel shut it tight. She released Hansel and both the children ran from the burning building with the evil witch in. Oh, they ran and ran and ran until they found their way home. Oh, their father, he welcomed them with outstretched arms. He apologised for leaving them. He said he came to look in the forest, but it was too big and he couldn't find them, but that the stepmother had been sent away for what she did. The children forgave their father immediately, and then they reached their hands into their pockets to reveal gold and jewels and diamonds. They were rich. All their troubles were gone, and they all lived happily ever after. Oh, I hope you enjoyed our story today. Join us next time when we follow Rapunzel on all of her adventures. Good night.